Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles in partnership with Movie Maker magazine. My name is Danny DeLillo. We're here at the South Park Center. I'm delighted to be joined by Rachel, who's come all the way from Toronto, Canada to be with us with her fantastic film, The Anarchist Lunch. Let's take a look at the clip. Rachel, thank you for being here and coming all the way to bring your wonderful film with us, and welcome to the New Filmmakers LA family.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your film was amazing. I've got so many questions, but for those that haven't seen your documentary, please tell us a brief synopsis.
It's about my dad just passed away this past July, and he was almost 100 years old. He was 99 and 2/3.
Wow.
And he had been meeting for over 35 years, with a group of guys, and they would meet every Thursday in a Chinese restaurant and talk about politics, literature, books, movies, themselves. And he is a longtime activist, political activist, as were many of the people around the table. So I just got really interested in them. I find him really interesting, and he's a very compelling character, and he's also my dad. So I got very interested in them, right? And just the fact that they had been meeting for so long every week. And I didn't actually even know that much about them. I had maybe attended the lunch once or twice, but I didn't really know the people that well. But I just decided somebody has to make a film about this.
Yeah.
There's something really important happening here. And I guess that kind of unfolded as we started shooting. We shot the film over 5 years in Vancouver, and I live in Toronto, so I would have to come from Toronto to do the shooting.
Oh, wow.
And then gradually, because it was shot over 5 years, things happened. And I don't want to give too much away about what actually happened, but one of them was COVID. My dad had a fall. Things happened which sort of gave us a story in a way. But it's really the story of these guys, and I talk about it as the themes as male friendship, aging, lifelong activism, and I think really the importance of community, and community, particularly as you age.
And bless you and your family. Bless for you for leaving a legacy, and so sorry that you had to kind of go through that in the release of this film to festivals as well. But what a beautiful legacy you've done for your father and for your family and all of his friends. Like, seriously, there's so many lessons to be learned in the film that you made for us. Firstly, to thank all the incredible activists and people that have come together over these course of 35 years, which is a long span of history in our society. Again, them meeting together over 35 years in this community is so impactful and empowering. And then when you hear these conversations, they've all individually done so much. And I think it really showed the community of people that have done incredible things, but also to be that active and that awake in society. When really you've paid your dues in this society, but they're still going at trying to make amends, trying to make the world a better place, was so beautiful. Was that something that you, obviously as filming it, you kind of maybe thought you knew what this lunch was about, but you got to learn so much more too, right?
Yeah, I think as I started making the film, I started trying to raise money for it. So then I had to put down in paper, what is this film about and what am I trying to do? And I think I realized that one of the things I was hoping that the film would do is inspire younger people, right? And to see these guys who, and the film opens with Marty saying, one of the things activists have to realize is that we have to keep going, even when it feels like there's no hope. And in many ways we're in a situation in the world right now where there's a lot of really difficult things going on. But I'm hoping that the film will inspire people to know that we have to keep being active, we have to keep raising our voices, we have to keep speaking out, even as Marty says, when it seems like there's no hope.
Absolutely, right? Absolutely.
So I think I got inspired by them as well, right? And that's been really great for me.
And the fact it's quite amazing this all took place in this lovely restaurant, this lovely family-style restaurant, and they all meet in this restaurant, which must have been a little bit difficult filming in this space as well. Like, how was that experience in the terms of directing and filming that? Because you probably were quite constricted, but you shot it really, really well as well.
Well, I give a lot of credit to the people on the camera. Actually, Josephine Anderson in particular did a really amazing job with the cinematography, because it was very challenging. We were at lunchtime in a crowded, busy, noisy restaurant, and they were sitting in the corner, which meant that, you know, you couldn't get all the way around the table with a camera. So she did a really incredible job of capturing that. And it took us a long time to figure out how to do the sound in particular, like how do we actually capture their voices.
Yeah.
And you can see in some of the shots, there's this gigantic microphone sitting in the middle of the table, which actually didn't work very well. And we eventually realized we had to put a lav on each individual person. And yeah.
And so over the course of 5 years, you've made this film. Anyone that has made a documentary, it takes a lot of work to make a documentary and formulate that and edit and everything else. Like, how do you work with your subjects? Because it's probably a little bit interesting when it's real life, real people, and you're coming in and, you know, they're not used to maybe having a camera there. Like, how did you work with them and kind of, what tips did you kind of give them so they could trust the process as well, really?
Yeah. I think it was an interesting process for them.
Yeah.
Because they were like, why are you making a film about our lunch? You know, it's like, what's the big deal? Why are you, you know, and my dad was like, I don't really know if we need this film, right? But I think my interest in them made them reflect on, why is this lunch important to us? Like, why do we come here every week? And what role does it actually play in our lives? And I think it kind of heightened that for them. They came to realize that actually this was something very important to them. And in terms of working with them, it's challenging, right? Anytime you put a camera in front of people, I think they have really interesting, dynamic conversations, arguments, whatever, you know. And then you put a camera there and everyone gets a little bit frozen, right? So we tried different things for a couple of the lunches. I sat with them, right? And then it became a little bit interviewee, right? Because I would quote, but really interesting things got said. And then I decided, okay, I need to not be there. I need to go. So we just put lavs on everyone. I went with the sound person, sat at a different table and tried to capture the conversation that way. And then, you know, COVID happened and they started meeting on Zoom. And then we were, you know, me and my editor had a lot of conversations about how much Zoom should we put into this into this movie. And he, I thought, did a brilliant thing where we get these little Zoom snippets, right? Little pieces of, like, we're not going to do long Zoom conversations, even though some of their conversations were really interesting that they had on Zoom. But we decided the little snippets just to get that sense of time. Over time, they were meeting on Zoom, and there's that funny moment where my dad, you know, who's like can't get the Zoom to work, right? We're all a bit tired of the Zoom jokes, but somehow it works, right?
Yeah, no, most definitely, no. And you know, we fell in love with your dad the moment the first shot of him, just, you know, and just him like going to lunch. He's a fascinating character as well, and like obviously really has led the way with this, you know, whole family of community over 35 years. I think one of the things that was a great reminder is that there are people like this community, like these people that have fought for so many things over the years, and how we should give so much grace to how far we've come from people like your dad and his community as well. And I think sometimes we can forget that in the things that we've got going on today. They've all done incredible things. Like, was that something that you got to learn on that process too? Because, wow. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, there are some really interesting people in that lunch. Like, for example, Ken Klonsky has been working for years and years with wrongly convicted prisoners, trying to get wrongly convicted prisoners released. And he co-wrote Hurricane Carter's biography, and then through that got involved with another case trying to release a man named David McCallum. He talks about it very briefly in the film. And he and his son both got very, very involved in the case to get David McCallum, who was completely wrongly convicted for something he hadn't done. And eventually they did get him released from prison.
Yeah.
So just learning about Ken's work was fascinating. Several of the people around the table are draft dodgers, right, from the Vietnam War,
Yeah.
came to Canada at that time. Many people in the group are Jewish, and many of them have been working as pro-Palestinian, solidarity activists for many, many years, which is so relevant and so important right now.
Absolutely.
I think for people to see that, and to see that there's been people fighting this struggle, and that there's Jewish people in particular who are supporting a free Palestine and supporting Palestinian people. I think that's really, really important for people to see.
That was a very
right
touching. That was a very touching part of the conversation as well. And it just goes to show as well, like being an activist is not just something that you should do when you're young. It's something that you should evolve in throughout your whole life. And to see the amazing life experience and the things that they've seen over the course of time. And yes, we've come a long way, and we've still got further to go, and that's the evolving way of humanity as well. It was obviously very hard to watch because there was this was live, this was real people. To think that obviously certain people passed away that were in the documentary in the midst of making it, and then the realization of just how important community is for each other, to support each other through those tough moments. That must have been an interesting thing that sadly you probably wasn't expecting, whilst making it.
Yes, and actually just a couple of days ago we had a screening of the film in Toronto. So I, for a number of years, was the executive director of a group called the United Jewish People's Order, which is a Jewish secular social justice organization. And they sponsored a screening of the film in Toronto. And there will probably never be as good an audience for that film as there was there, because it's a very intergenerational organization with people who are in their 90s and people who are in their teenagers and in their 20s, right? And we had a conversation after the film screening about intergenerational organizing and what is it like, 'cause for example, I'm an activist, my dad is an activist, my offspring is an activist, and was on the panel with us. And it was talking about what's it like for the kids growing up with activist parents, what's it like for the parents, and what is the legacy that we pass on to our children, and how do we do it, and how much of it is conscious and how much of it is unconscious, and are we conveying values, are we conveying positions, are we teaching our kids to think critically? And I think at this moment it's really important also that we be talking about that, right? Like, how do we pass on this legacy of social awareness, of commitment to social justice? How do we keep that going, right? And also recognize that it changes over time, right? Like, the world is a different place now than when I was young and then when my dad was young. And so how do we both carry on the values and the commitment and also deal with the world like as it is today?
Well, your family is doing the world proud, because from your father to you and then your daughter as well is, you're passing it along in the most beautiful way. So, and continuing that chain, through generations of just being aware and being awake to what's around you. So, I thank you and all of the cast and crew that have put together all the things that you've done and activists for, because we, without people that step up and step out, we wouldn't have the changes we have in society today. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
What is next for you?
What is next?
Or what you would like to do next, even?
Well, I'm trying to. I'm really happy that this film has gotten into a festival in Vancouver and another one in Toronto, so that feels great that there'll be other screenings and other opportunities. Somebody at that screening in Toronto was a geriatric doctor and said very passionately, like, I must have this film to train people who are working with old people, right? Because one of the things the film does, I think, is break down some of the stereotypes about what does it mean to age, and what do you do what are the possibilities for you as somebody who's older, right? And what's important about being old. So that was kind of exciting to think about where this film actually might be useful to people and where it might inspire people in various ways. And then, as we were talking about, I'm really interested in intergenerational organizing. So I think my next project may be something about that. And I don't know exactly what shape it will take at this point, but it's something that I think is really important for us to be thinking about.
It really is. It really is. I think there's so much we can learn from each other, and you know, in a weird way, it feels quite disconnected in today's society. We need to kind of really embrace that again. So I can't wait for you to delve into that topic as well. But just thank you to thank you to your father, thank you to your family, thank you for all the amazing people you brought together. Because I think it's a very important film, a very important lunch that will continue to, inspire other people to fight for what they believe in and what's important to them and their community as well. So thank you very much. And thanks for coming all the way from Toronto to be here.
Yeah. I just have to tell you that one of the great things that happened at that screening in Toronto, people sent me pictures afterwards of them all sitting in Chinese restaurants. Everyone gets starving when they watch the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I know. Actually, I want to go to that restaurant. Like, I'm dying. Like, seriously. That's my first thing in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all going to be there.
No,
now,
the restaurant's in Vancouver.
Oh, it's in Vancouver.
Yeah,
okay.
Broadway and Granville in Vancouver.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put the number at the bottom and you can order order your food.
But they sent me these wonderful photographs of them all sitting around in community, eating together. And yeah, it was great.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for having me here and for you're a wonderful interviewer.
Oh, thank you. And thank you. And thank you for bringing something, the importance of power of community, putting your phones down and communicating with each other and expressing. And I think one of the most important thing is that you may not even have the same ideologies, but you're all there to listen to each other, and you all want this common ground of making the world a better place. And that's certainly what you had in your film. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.